Hello YouTube, this is Charlie426, and today we have a figure review. This is the Revoltech Evangelion mass production type. Now this is not the old version where it only came with just the unit. This is actually a new version which comes with pretty much everything that you need as far as I know. So as I mentioned, this is a figure review, and this is the Revoltech series are very interesting. They definitely have a distinctive aspect of the products where once you have a close observation, you can pretty much tell whether or not it is a Revoltech product. So anyway, let's get on to the review now. This is the Evangelion or Eva mass production type, which we saw in the main series. Around the end part where these are like very creepy looking robots. Basically, they have their body structure. Everything looks very nice. Everything looks very simple to the point where it's definitely a mass production type, except for the head where it has that that creepy looking smile. That smile actually used to be this unit or this thing used to be like one of my nightmare fuel as a kid. So now I'm a bit older, so yeah, now this figure has become one of my most favorite Revoltech figures out there actually. I do have some Revoltech figures, it's just that I haven't reviewed them yet, so this is the first time for me. Alright, so let's get on to the review. So first of all, what you get of course is obviously the Eva unit, the mass production type unit. So for the hands, it comes with a kind of a fist type hands, but it's not actually a full fist. It's actually a hole for a weapon. So that's the type of hands we're using. So you get a set. Currently on the background, there's the HG Gundam local type, just to show you guys like a height comparison later, so I don't forget. So other than that, what you get of course is a lot of stuff. You can see there's those wings, hands, heads, a orange case, an action base, a weapon. So we'll go with one by one at the moment. So let's get rid of the basics. So for hands, you get three types of hands, or three sets of hands. Other than the one I just mentioned that's currently on the figure, we get fully open hands for left and right. So mostly for, how should I say, posing purposes. And then here we have a hand which are meant for holding the weapon, not the Spear of Longinus or the copy of Longinus. Here we have its giant blade, dual blade. So this is the type of hand that you use to actually hold this weapon. So yeah. And then here we have some extra, well, I wouldn't say extra, but these are more like effect parts as far as I can say, or something like that. So we get two more heads. Currently, the one that's currently on the figure is a head which has the closed mouth, and here we have another head with the open mouth, and it has its creepy blue tongue inside. And you can see the teeth, very well done actually. So one of the tricky parts with Revoltech figures is that everything is colored. So if the robot has a visor, it's not going to be a clear piece. It's mostly going to be colored. So sometimes you can get some color, mistakes sometimes. So yeah, which is why sometimes if you try to buy a secondhand Revoltech figure and it's being sold for very cheap, usually number one reason is that it has some sort of wrong paint application, or number two is it really has something problem with it. So for this one, I think it's very well done. And I should mention that, as you can see on the camera, Revoltech figures, or at least the ones I have, they all have this glossy color feeling. So this is actually normal, but sometimes you can get some parts where it isn't glossy because maybe quality control or whatever. But yeah. So here we have the busted up head, or technically the head that got ripped off on the top. So this part is supposed to be like the brain section, where even in the anime I think it definitely looked like a brain. Now this one looks like something melted on it, but still definitely grotesque looking. And here we have a entry plug. So by the way, this the entry plug or the dummy plug is not detachable on its own, so don't try to pull it. But yeah, this is the plug where there's this lump on the back, so if you want to have this out, you have to replace that part, which I will be showing you guys in the demonstration sections. So yeah, nothing too special. And here we have these two. These two is something I was not expecting. These are effect parts for, this one is a effect part for a entirely ripped off arm. So the joints are technically white, but this one turns into black. So yeah, that could be tricky, but you can see the ripped off section. There's even the bone inside. Very well done. So you can use this on either arm if you want to, but on the box or mostly on the manual or something, this will be done on the left arm usually. And then here we have this one. This is not for the arm, this is actually for the lower arm joint. So if your lower arm got ripped off, this is what you use. You can see the bone and blood inside. Definitely well done. Okay, and then for a Revoltech figure, you get this small box, which is actually meant for, if you throw away the main box, this is where you can store in all those small pieces, like extra heads, hands, and here. Of course, you won't be able to put in the big stuff like the weapons. Okay, and then here on the back we have the wings. So when you open the box, you'll have 3 sections: the main middle section, and then the other 2 sections right over here. So yeah, once again I'll demonstrate these on the later sections. Oh yeah, so here we have some extra stuff. So here we have a action base for various poses, and here we have this for another connecting point for the action base, depending on the pose what you want to do. And here we have another extra joint to connect the figure if you're using that extra joint. So I guess this is the point where I should explain how Revoltech joints work. So this is how a Revoltech joint looks like, or the typical Revoltech joints. Now there are smaller versions as well, or sometimes if you buy like the older products, there will be some joints that doesn't use this, but most of the time, even today, I'm pretty sure this is going to be like any Revoltech figure will have at least 80 to 70% of these type of joints. So what's so special about this is that I'm going to move the joints. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but you can hear the cranking noise. What this does is that it locks it into place. So there's no way anything can get loose. The joints cannot get loose at most of the time. So you can leave the figure in a certain pose and leave it there pretty much for forever. Because some, like Robot Damashi or like Figma figures, if you put it on a certain pose, depending on the pose, the joints could get loose. This one does not have that case. Granted, because of this, if you're not used to this kind of joints, it may be a little bit uncomfortable, and because of this aspect, you might need to reposition these joints a lot. So sometimes posing the figure might be awkward with these joints, but it definitely works once you get enough practice. Alright, once again, as I mentioned, here's the weapon. Here's the dual blade. The top section is actually a little bit longer than the lower section, and very simple. And then we have the copy version of the Spear of Longinus. Longinus, I think that's how you pronounce it in English, but if I'm wrong, please let me know. Now, the original spear is supposed to be red. This is like a production version, like a copy version. So, as far as I know, it has like all the same properties, as far as I know. So, it has the same abilities, the same power. It's just not the real thing. So, as you can see, I just detached this, or I mean reattached this. So, in the box, it'll come in separate pieces because this thing is a very long weapon that it's not going to be able to be inside the box in this format. And this is the hands that are currently on the figure. Those are the hands that you use for this spear. Okay, now we've seen the basics, and before I go on with the articulation, I just want to show you guys like a simple height comparison. Now the height of the figure itself is actually mentioned on the box. So on the box it mentions it's 135 millimeters, so that should be 13.5 centimeters. So I guess it's almost identical or close as a typical HG kit. Granted, the legs are a little bit on the outside, but either way, you can pretty much expect to be the same size of a typical 1:144 scale HG kit. Alright, so when we're done with the main components, I'll be right back for the articulation. Okay, I'm back. Now we're going to start talking about the articulation of the figure. So keep in mind, as I mentioned on how I demonstrated the joints on the Revoltech figures, now you have to be aware where the joint position is and how they're going to move. So if they're plugged in, then obviously they can only rotate and then move either up and down or where the position of the moving point is. All right, so let's start with the head. Very creepy looking head. Definitely nightmare fuel material. So here's the head. So now when you first get out of the box, definitely need to check the position of the joints, because when I first opened the box, the moving point joint was not actually straight. It was actually on a more of an angle, so I had to reposition it. But thanks to me repositioning it, you can move the head down that much. Boy, that cranking noise. And then up. Now if I go fully up, now the joint might be outside a little bit, but that's pretty much okay for this one. But yeah. And depending on the figure you buy, the joints color may vary. So if you buy the Eva Unit 2, you mostly see black and oranges. This one being mostly white, so you have these white joints. Only the black ones on the legs. So yeah. So since it is on the peg, you can rotate it 360. But once again, just be careful. And if you want to move it like the other way around, so you have to reposition the joints like this, so it looks looking other way. So yeah, so you really need to practice a lot with these figures to do it right. Okay, so for the shoulders, now I guess I can't say there's a shoulder movement itself because of the way how the Revoltech joints work, but since it's on the position, you can move the arm about 90 degrees to the side and then rotate it 360 since it is on a peg, and depending on how where the position is, you can move the arm a little bit more if you want to do so like that. And then the bend. Now, back in the early days when the EVA units, I have the very early old EVA Unit 2, and on that version, the joints were non-Revoltech joints for the arms, but this one is actually those Revoltech joints, so it can move about like more than 90 degrees bend. And I really like how smooth the hand connection is. It looks really natural. But the hands are not on ball joints, they're more on pegs, so be careful on that. Alright, so let's get the back. So here is where the entry plug is supposed to be. So if you want to attach that red plug thing, you have to actually take this entire part off. Same goes for the wings. If you want to attach the wings, you have to take this off and plug it right over here. Now we're going to look at the back section. I really like how the back section is. There's a lot of these black lines and stuff. I wonder what these are actually at this point. But as those who are familiar with EVA units, they always have these electrical cables that's on the back, which for their power. The EVA mass production type doesn't use those because they're using a different engine or something like that. So which is why we have these. Definitely looks nice. Now let's get the main body. Okay. Oh, by the way, for the arms, you can rotate the arms if you want to do so, since they are on the pegs. But it's not as easy as you think. So yeah, it is possible, but not easy. So for the body, currently you can see the moving point is facing towards, so the body can move a lot like that. That's a lot of bend, and then it can go. Yeah, I think it can't go back as far as I can tell, because of the structure and the design is actually blocking the process. Okay, and since it still is on a peg, so you can move the body 360 if you want to do so. And then for the legs, now I believe the more recent EVA units, they have another Revoltech joint on the sides or on this section. This one does not have that. But instead it just has a typical moving joint where you can move forward like this, 90 degrees to the front, and then back not so much because it's more moving on an angle. So back not so much, but it does have a nice side swivel that can go 360. And then the bend, once again, we have another Revoltech joint here. It has this one, ooh, that's not actually too tight. Okay, so the black ones are less tighter for mine at least. And so it can move, I wouldn't say double joint, but definitely moves more than 90 degrees. And then we have the feet, which once again has Revoltech joints, so it has another movement right over there. So the main downside regarding these style of joints would be that it doesn't really have a pivot action point unless you actually reposition the joints. So yeah. Alright, we've seen the basic articulation, and if you look at the feet on below, there is actually a peg here because Revoltech stands now, most of them they didn't really use to give this part. They would just give out the lower section. The main reason is that because some Revoltech figures have really trouble standing up on its own. This one, on the other hand, I had less trouble than the others, but this one, once again, may not be easy for some people depending on how you position it. So this is what they kind of want you to do. You connect the stand onto the feet so it can stand on its own more easily. So yeah, that's one of the main purpose for these things. But if you can make it stand without it, it's also good. So just needs a little bit of practice and you're good to go. Alright, so we're done with the main articulation, so I'll be right back with the first set of equipment. Okay, I'm back with the first set of equipment. Currently I'm doing the kneeling pose with the dual edge, with the double blade on the right hand and the open hand for the left arm, and then the entry plug for the back plug section. So currently I forgot to mention where Revoltech figures, despite how the joints how should I say, the joint designs are, they are very, how should I say, they are very, I won't say articulative, but it's really good for practicing poses. Now, I usually want to do kneeling poses, but these are one of those few figures that actually had less trouble doing this pose, and really like how this is going. So currently it's on a kneeling pose. Granted, maybe the back section of the right section of the leg may look a little bit awkward, but I think I did a pretty good job regarding this. Now I forgot to mention regarding the wrist articulation, which I should mention how they work. So as I mentioned, they are on the peg. You know what? I'm just actually going to take off the arm. So here we have the arm. Definitely looks nice. So the way how, yeah, this is the open hand. This is the non-weapon holding hand. So the way how this works is that currently, if I have the hand on, it can go 360, which is kind of creepy when you look at it like this, because this is not possible for a human being to do it like that. You have to take it off, and you can see there's just a single peg on an angle like this. So yeah, this was kind of very different because if I remember correctly, the old Eva Revoltech figures, they actually had another extra joint between the hand and the arm. So around the wrist section, there was another small Revoltech joints without the cranking aspect. So, which was actually more articulated than you think. But yeah, that thing is actually missing at that point. But then again, this is the mass production type, so they wanted to maybe simplify a few more aspects, so which is why they did that. So once again, because of this aspect, so the holding hand, you can see it's not really holding it straight, it's actually more on an angle, which is why sometimes the pose may look awkward, but yeah, depending on how you position the wrist like this, it may look much more better than you think. Okay, and then finally on the back section, the plug. Yeah, I believe the red ones are supposed to be the dummy plug, where there's no actual pilot inside, it's just that it's using data from a different pilot, and then using that to fight. Anyway, so yeah, we're done with the first set of equipment, so I'll be right back with the second set of equipment. Okay, I'm back with the second set of equipment. Well, it's kind of a more different variation of the stuff I've used. So currently, this time on the left arm, I'm holding the blade, and then on the right arm, I used the ripped off arm effect part. And just to make sure that, just to show you guys like a general idea how these stands work, I connected the stand on the feet, so you can see if you're having trouble, this will definitely help out balancing the figure. And I used the open head to make it more grotesque looking. So let's take that away and have another look. So currently, this is how the arm effect part works. I'll definitely show you guys the other effect parts. So you can see it definitely looks like it got ripped out. So if you want to change the position a little bit, you can kind of twist this, because this is actually just on the same connection, just the same how should I say this? Same peg connection. So you can see that's how that works. So as I mentioned, since you get a set of the hands, you can definitely use it on either hand for the weapon, and we have the open thing. So what made these Eva Unit mass production types very creepy is that despite Eva Unit 2 pretty much beat the crap out of them, even to the point where the Eva Unit 2 slashed its body or ripped out its arm, blew up its head, they would still fight after like regenerating. Well, I wouldn't say regenerating, but they got reactivated and then still fought despite they had these kind of damages going on, which definitely was creepy. And the fact that they don't have an eye, or they don't have any eyes, or definitely not a human face looking aspect, and then only the mouth, definitely made it more creepy looking, which is why I think which is why some people really like this figure as well. Alright, so once again, I'll be right back with the third set of equipment. Okay, here we have another set of equipment. So currently I have the wings on, and then on the right arm I have the spear, and then it's more of doing a pose where it's going to now throw the spear at the moment. So currently, as you can see, for the action base, I'm using the Revoltech action base for this pose. Now I have a confession to make, is that I tried using this extra joint right over here, and I have no idea how to use this. I tried connecting to this section, and then reconnect it to the figure. This stand cannot hold up the weight of the figure itself, so it would start falling to the front. So I have no idea how this figure works. Now, while taking pictures, I did use a different stand, because I had to use this stand, which is from Bandai, because it definitely could take in the weight of this figure. So currently we have the figure all on here, so I should now explain how some things work. So while explaining the articulation, I guess I did forgot to tell you how the wings work. So first of all, the wings, how they connect, is that I can take this section off. So this is where it connects. This is the only connecting point for the figure to the wing. So it's the entry plug section. So we have the wings. Actually, yeah, let's get rid of the spear, because the spear is really long. You can see, like, very long. It can almost hold, reach the bottom section, the top from bottom of my shelf. So okay, so here we have the wings. Now the inside is black, while the outside is purely white. So there's 3 sections: the middle and the extra wings. So that's 3 sections, and each of them are connected to a single Revoltech joint. So once again, being a Revoltech joint, so you can, since it's on the up and down angle, you can move it up. Ooh, be careful, because I have heard cases where people do break Revoltech joints, but not too common. So you can move it, and depending on the angle, you can move it to the inside if you want to do so more. So and then you can twist it if you want to do so. Yeah, and the connection for the wings, despite being an only peg, and then the way how it plugs in, it just plugs in very smoothly, that you might think it's a bit loose, but not as loose as you think. So that's actually very well done. And yeah, definitely gives out that more, instead of a more mechanical feeling, it definitely makes it look like a more biological monster rather than a robot. Alright, so we're almost done, so there's only one more thing to show you guys, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back with the last set of equipment. Currently you can see it has the damaged head, the ripped off right arm, and then the ripped off lower left arm, as you can see. Definitely this is one thing I was not expecting to see from the figure. I believe I heard the old version regarding the head. There's actually another version that has the knife that's stuck in the head, but still, this looks very, very nice. I mean, despite how disgusting it looks very nice. I mean, it's something we don't really see too often in a figure. I mean, sometimes at best we would get a busted up version of the arm, or actual mechanically damaged version, but this one's more of a literally biological bleeding, like, effect parts. So yeah, other than, I think the brain might need a little bit extra touch up, but other than that, the arms look very nice. Now for those who are actually curious, as I mentioned, now in the manual or on the box, it will show you guys doing it like this, but if you want to do so, you can always change the position like this if you want to. So it works on both arms, so you don't need to worry that much. And yeah. Anyway, so that's pretty much it for the review. So if you really are interested in getting the Revoltech figures, or at least the EVA mass production type, definitely go try one. Now, just be careful, don't get the old one, because the old one does not come with the wings. And then what I got was the renewal version, as far as I can tell. So, and the old versions, I heard if you put it on the sun a long time, or sometimes due to some other reactions, it can turn a little bit into yellow. But I heard the new ones don't have that issue anymore. Anyway, thank you for watching the review. This was the review of the Revoltech Evangelion mass production type. That's actually written on the box, but I'm going to say the EVA mass production type anyway. So if you guys got any questions or requests, leave a comment below. I still have more stuff to buy and build and make reviews out, so please stay tuned. Until then, see you guys next time.